move forward. So the first transceivers in about 1957 were from Collins and others. I've got some pictures. They were tube-based, super hets, of course, CW-AM sideband. Sideband was just getting very, very popular at that time. AM was king for years. Well, CW was super king for years. Still is, right, Alan? Yeah. Anyway, the sideband generation was typically done with filters, although there were some phasing type sideband generations, and you may call out a name or two. I didn't. Simple, that's it. I knew there was one that was they all used, if you look, well, not on that transceiver, but in this, they all used discrete component and sort of dead bug before dead bug was popular. You had tube sockets and terminal strips, and that's where you wired your resistors and your capacitors from, was the lugs on the tube sockets. And most of them used an external power supply. And you'll see that as we go on, things grow. There's a KWM1, number one. The first mobile SSB transceiver. If you look at the specs on that, it's like not very good, but hey, Art Collins knew what he was doing, and he sold, what, a couple of million of them to the government. Probably not that many, but a lot. Some other transceivers, sideband engineers, SPE. It was okay to smoke then. I don't know, I didn't, it was like the washing machines with some Tide in it. Maybe they gave you a pack of Marlboros when you bought a, is that what that means? The Galaxy 300? Oh, well, I'm not saying the first, there was a Galaxy 3 first. Yeah, Charlie used to work up there. So that shows you how far back they go if he used to work there. Hallecrafter's SR150 transceiver, that's typical of that. It's one of the newer ones. The first ones came out and then they developed and got a little bit fancier and so forth. Here's a Drake TR3, their first transceiver. They went to TR4s, TR4 CWs, TR4 CWs with RIT. I like Drake stuff and used to collect it, so a lot of this is the stuff I know. So, yeah. It's a very popular Heathkit radio. They made 3 of these, 80, 40, and 20 meters, and they were all tube type, just like the HW101, and they were mobile transceivers, single band. I've got an 80 meter one. So after that vintage, we jump up to the hybrids. They were solid state, except for the tube finals and the driver. There were 6146s, or in the Swans, they were sweet tubes and all that stuff. They were typically PC board with through-hole components, no surface mount yet. Kenwood TS830 is a great radio I had years ago that was that hybrid type, FT101. The 830 had an internal power supply, so they brought the power supply inside. Why? Because, well, they had high voltage for the final, but they could do it inside. There's a Yaesu FT101B. I bet you half the people in this room had one of those. Of some vintage anyway, 101.
AC and DC power supply.
Yep. National NCX3, 80, 40, and 20. Okay, we go to the next generation. It's solid state, fully solid state, everything, finals, you name it. Still discrete components. They had some ICs in there. Large-scale integrated circuits were just coming onto the scene, so there were some features in there that were put in by them. A few examples: Kenwood TS120. It's about this big, pretty small. TS130, which was had the work bands and everything. Icom 730, and they were 12 volts because they were all solid state, so that was a benefit. You didn't have that 900 volts sitting out there to bite you on a Sunday morning when you woke up and didn't get your coffee yet.